Let's talk, y'all. Let's talk about discipline. Ooh, this one's gonna be really, really good. Let's talk about discipline. I mean, we talk a lot about sexuality, a little bit about sensuality, but nobody talks about discipline. It is important, y'all. I'm gonna tell you why. Honestly, that's why so many people confuse sensuality with chaos. They think sensuality means unlimited access, no restraint, constant indulgence, impulsiveness, validation, attention, and desire without responsibility. But true sensuality without discipline becomes self destruction. Now, I know some of us were introduced to discipline via the way of our parents or even the school system because we had to be accountable for turning in assignments on time and getting to practice, getting to lunch, going to class, all these different things that we had to do during the day. It is not a punishment. Discipline is not a punishment. Let's start there. I think that's where people immediately misunderstand it because discipline is structure. It is awareness. It is intentionality, it's self-governance, it's the ability to remain connected to yourself while experiencing pleasure, intimacy, desire, attraction, emotions, and temptation. Discipline asks, why am I doing this? Is this aligned with me? Am I making a conscious choice or I'm reacting emotionally? You know?
Now, this part of my audio got cut up a little bit, but I will say that sensuality, if you remember, is not a race, it's not a game. It's about how you experience the world. And when you're hypersexualizing everything, it changes the way that you view the world and how sensual you can be with yourself. Just remember that. We're not taking enough time to appreciate everything around us, experiencing beauty. And that's one of the things that gets lost when too many things are happening at one time.
So dopamine, discipline matters in sensuality for a multitude of reasons. It protects sensuality from becoming a consumption. So without discipline, people begin to use sensuality to do things like escape themselves, manipulate, seek validation, numb pain, control others, avoid loneliness, or even chase dopamine. It's kind of the same thing when somebody goes to take drugs, you know? And eventually they stop asking, does this actually nourish me? You gotta think about that. Because discipline creates awareness around things like pacing, intention, emotional regulation, boundaries, consent, attachment, and self respect. How much do you respect yourself to be disciplined? Mm, bet you didn't think about that one. And in my last video about boundaries, I mentioned that a lot of people underestimate how deeply intimacy affects the nervous system. Sexuality is not just physical, it's very neurological, it's very psychological, it's very emotional. Your body remembers experiences. If it doesn't remember anything else, it's going to remember what it experienced. So this means that it could remember nervous system overstimulation, pressure, coercion, inconsistencies, manipulation, emotional confusion, and unsafe dynamics. So, therefore, discipline helps slow people down enough to ask, is this safe for me mentally? Am I grounded right now? Am I acting from desire or am I'm just hungry? Am I just hungry? Like it really comes down to that fact. Some people don't know if they're hangry or if they're horny. Like you sometimes the wires get crossed and without discipline, if you just do whatever you want every time you have a feeling, then you're not going to know those things. You're not going to get the signals or whatever. So when we come across boundaries and discipline, you have to stand on your boundaries. You have to stand 10 toes down on your boundaries. They're a form of discipline. And I think people misunderstand boundaries because they think boundaries are rejection. Boundaries are clarity. They are things that teach people how to interact with you, how to respect you, and how to respect themselves and how you respect yourselves. Without discipline, boundaries, they do collapse under pressure. So people start to overextend, overshare, overperform, overgive, or just abandon themselves just to feel wanted or be around people. And I tell you that experience is not, it's a 0 out of 10. It's not going to get you anywhere. I also did a video about consent. Consent is very important, and how that ties in with discipline is like this. Because healthy consent requires honesty, self awareness, communication, emotional regulation, and respect, discipline allows people to say no without guilt, accept no without anger, communicate clearly, and stop treating attraction like entitlement. Boom. It's that simple. And honestly, a lot of people just don't struggle with attraction, they struggle with restraint. Restraint. They don't know how to not do something. Restraint. That is one of the biggest issues that people have, is that they don't know their own restraints. So discipline teaches people how to experience desire without being consumed by desire, if that makes sense. Now, the digital culture and overstimulation is very unique. We live in a culture that constantly overstimulates people, constantly. So everything is hypersexualized. It's like almost immediate, performative, algorithmic, attention driven. People are consuming intimacy faster than they're emotionally processing it. And I think that's why so many people feel disconnected, emotionally exhausted, numb, touch starved, addicted to validation, or confused about intimacy because they don't have any discipline. So, discipline helps you restore intentionality. If you don't know what you're doing something for, you shouldn't be doing it. Flat out. That's just what I live by. If I don't know why I'm doing it, what I'm doing it for, I'm not gonna do it. It will teach people how to slow down and reconnect to themselves instead of endlessly consuming stimulation. That's another thing. A lot of us downplay this overstimulated part, but being overstimulated is what keeps you in the loop of doing things out of comfortability because you just do it all the time. Doing anything different is going to change your brain chemistry. So you don't want to do that. So you do the same thing every time, over and over and over again. And that's not always good. So, discipline for self versus discipline for others. I do want to touch on just a little bit. Discipline for self means that you're honoring your boundaries, you're regulating your emotions, you're pacing intimacy, you're not just doing it every day and expecting to not get burnt out. You're protecting your peace, you're respecting your body, and you're being honest with yourself. Now, discipline towards others mean that you're respecting consent, you're not manipulating emotions, you're not weaponizing intimacy, you're not communicating unclearly, and not treating people like objects or things for emotional gratification. So, healthy sexuality is intentional, y'all. It's not robotic, it's not cold, it's not anti pleasure, it's just consciousness. It understands that pleasure without awareness can become destructive. And I think discipline makes sexuality a little bit deeper, if you're being honest. If you're in a session with somebody and they don't know how to hold it and they just end it in 3 minutes and you had in your head, you thought they was going to go at least for an hour, that destroys the connection, don't it? I'm sorry, I couldn't hold that back. Anyway. But honestly, it makes sense because restraint creates meaning, presence creates intimacy and awareness creates safety. So sensuality without discipline becomes very impulsive and discipline without sensuality becomes very disconnected. Put them together, self-awareness. You got it. And I think one of the most powerful things a person can learn is how to experience pleasure without losing themselves in the process. Now, a question for myself, I will answer for you guys, and I want you guys to answer too. Have you ever had to relearn boundaries, discipline, or consent within intimacy or sensuality? Yes, I have. I had at least two long-term relationships before where in the middle or in the midst of it, we kind of just lost feelings for each other. When you're with somebody so long, everything becomes predictable and you kind of fall out of it, especially if there's nothing new going on. But the bigger problem was that I didn't have it for myself. I was always expecting it to come from the other person or the fact that the relationship makes it. So I didn't have a lot of creative outlets for me. and that kept me from experiencing my own sensuality. I had to relearn boundaries because I was letting everybody do anything. And I didn't really have a good idea of what consent was, which started this whole journey for me. If you watched a couple of videos back, I talked about how the female orgasm was one of the first things that taught me about consent in my own way. Especially for a young lady. I was only a sophomore, junior in college. I wasn't really doing much. So it taught me how to be strong and courageous within myself to do things or to not do things. So I'll repeat the question again. Have you ever had to relearn boundaries, discipline, or consent within intimacy or sensuality? Drop your comments below. Let me know. Answer the question. Let me know how you feeling. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for coming again. I'm glad you're here. Subscribe if you haven't. Like, comment, share, dislike if it really feels you in your heart. But I will see you guys later in the next video.